There we are. Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee Talk. Thank you so much for joining me, Ava.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, and whether you're watching live or in the future, hello. Glad to have you here. These are just informal conversations with people who use the tools of access consciousness to create more ease and joy in their lives. And today, we thought we'd talk about change. Change is good. Change is good. Like, which is it? How many of you are like super reluctant to change? And then once you change, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I wait so long for?
Exactly. And also, I think really cool thing to look at about change is that it makes people around you uncomfortable too. And like if you are psychic, which if you're listening to this, chances are you are, whether you recognize that yet or not. But like if you're psychic, you perceive what you changing creates in everybody else's reality. So I wonder how many of us have actually at different phases and maybe even now in our lives, like toned ourselves down just so we don't make other people uncomfortable.
Totally. Yes. I know it's so crazy how aware we are that we've probably never acknowledged. Like most of the discomfort is an awareness of someone or something else.
Mm.
Yeah. Like especially if you change your relationship in any way, whether
Mhm.
you get married, get divorced, get into a relationship, break up a relationship, all the people around you perceive that change and it creates this weird trigger of judgment in their own heads about their lives and what they're choosing. It has nothing to do with you, but you think, oh no,
I
you
did
know,
something
maybe
wrong.
I did it wrong. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Interesting.
Wouldn't it be so amazing to like never go into like that space where we doubt ourselves or judge ourselves or even second guess our choices, especially when it comes to change? Because like most of our like choice creates change. With every choice we make, we are changing something. And how much more fun and how much more faster and how much more ease would there be in our lives if we stopped making what we're aware of in other people's universe relevant and
Mhm.
really just made that change and that choice and what's actually fun for us the priority and
Mhm.
the only thing that matters, because isn't that the only thing that matters, like our point of view? But it's fascinating how much like our entrainment is such we're just never um I don't get that many of us were brought up with that point of view where we were encouraged to look at even what our point of view is, what we desire. And it's like so much of upbringing, my upbringing and of people that I've met, most of them has been around like adjusting yourself based on what works for everybody.
Yeah.
And it like diminishes you so much. And like if you're different, if you work and function differently and you maybe way faster than everybody else in your life, if it's so crucial for us to like start cultivating that trust in ourselves, because
Yeah.
otherwise like there's a lot that can quote unquote validate and give so much proof around why changing is bad. But like,
Yes, totally.
what's your point of view? Is it?
Yeah. I was speaking with a friend, I think it was last week, and they were saying something about they're not turned off, they just have turned their dimmer switch down. And I was like,
Huh.
wow, like where have we turned down our dimmer switch on everything? And so I'm like starting to notice that everywhere with
Mhm.
everyone, including myself. And like, especially the times when you were like so happy and so joyful and somebody else like didn't like it or was in a bad mood and they were like, and you're like, and you turn that dimmer switch down
Yeah.
and it like stayed down. because you thought there was something wrong with the joy, the enjoyment, for whatever reason.
Yeah, weirdly, as you talk about what pops for me is death
Mm,
and the whole energy of how like death is one topic on the planet that probably everybody would align and agree that it's a very sad thing, and then it's supposed to that there were literally very formal structures around the mourning period not until too long ago, right? And how the appropriate way to grieve and all of that. But I was just getting how even some in even the situation of death, what if like suffering or misery is still a choice? What if you could still have ease with all that? And the reason that popped was I remember this example that somebody shared with me of how their father died, and that person was chatting with Dane, and they were in the middle of some class creation and this occurred, and so she let him know, and he very gently told her basically to look at what if this does not have to be hard.
mm,
And like somebody dying is such a massive change, especially when it's someone close in their lives. But this person shared with me how the entire process, yes, there was grief, yes, they were sad, but there was also this joy of celebrating this person's life.
mm.
And that's like a way of changing and moving with the change that's so beyond what most of the world functions in.
Yeah.
And, so what's actually truly possible that we haven't ever allowed ourselves to fully, like, where we've sort of what you were saying, where we've dimmed our own switch off, what's
Yeah.
truly possible for us so that we can fit
Yeah.
in to what's acceptable, what is the norm, rather than really looking at what's truly my reality with this.
Yeah. And it's funny that you're bringing up the death piece because over the weekend we also were talking about pieces of that, and like the misidentification of that, like when you're like, oh my God, they're gone, and there's like this really heavy sadness, that's when actually their spirit is there. And so people are saying something that is not true, and that's why they feel so heavy and contracted. And if we
Wow.
would just simply acknowledge, oh, yes, their body is no longer, but they are still here. And I can feel them. I can perceive them. I can actually talk to them, receive from them, contribute to them. It's the same. They just don't have the body. And
Wow.
it totally changes when you acknowledge what's true. It totally changes, and people get out of that, sad, heavy place. It's
Totally. I
really,
love that.
it's very quite empowering. It's funny because I'm a talk to the entities facilitator, and it took me years to even choose that. I don't know why, whatever. But like way before even Access existed, I had an experience where my brother was in a motorcycle accident, taken to the hospital, and he was on life support and he died. But for me, I was traveling back home on the red eye, and I had this total download and communication with him. So I thought he was alive. I thought everybody could do this.
Yeah. Wow.
Because we just had this connection, even though we were on opposite sides of the country. I could perceive his angst in his world that whole day. And I was like, oh, something's going to happen. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel good. So there's this connection that we have. And like with the amazing tools of Talk to the Entities, you can have ease with that. You can get what that angsty feeling is. You can create some change. You can create connection so much easier.
I love that so much. That's such a beautiful story. And also such a great example of, I love talk to the entities for for the subtle skills that we learn from that class and that entire field of work. Like
Yeah.
it's like we talk so much about perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving in access consciousness. Like when you take a foundation class, you'll learn a lot more about it. And everything is about like bringing you from that thoughts, feelings, emotions, land into like this space of perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving. And talk to the entity classes for me are like one place to where you get to like really dive in with that, because that's the way to communicate or talk to the entities, is through those subtle whispers of it's a space, it's a different language altogether. And it's essentially the language of our being. It's the language that a little baby that's born speaks. You
Mhm.
know, it's the language in which it's communicating with its mother all the time. And then we diminish it by, saying, oh, you're taking cues from body language and all that kind of, we try to
Right.
define what's
Visual
going on.
words. Yeah.
Exactly. Rather than just acknowledge what's actually going on, and the in fact, like with change, as you were saying, as you were sharing your story, I was getting one of the things to get about change is it's how much there is a resistance to change in the world, like as if change is wrong. I remember like one of my friends has often told me this, you've changed. And it
Mhm.
was not meant to be a compliment, even though I took it as
You're
one.
like,
I'm like,
thank
thank
you.
you. Exactly. But it was more of like, a guilt trip or something, people used to control you that don't
Mhm.
change or define you as someone and then project that someone on you all the time. So it's like one of the greatest gifts from Access to me has been to really be aware of that and not on an autopilot, just become what you're aware of, but actually have the space enough to ask a question and even look at where someone's functioning from and what's true for you. So like the whole thing about change being such a wrong thing, like so much of our world is designed around creating a stable life that's more predictable. And one of the greatest gifts of the quote unquote pandemic has been to just see how nothing can actually ever be predictable. And, we're always changing all the time. And, it's when we have the resistance to change, like everybody who suffers from that resistance and not from change. Because when you move with the change, like you beautifully shared in your story, Julie, like you were swimming with that change or what occurred, like your with the brother, his body dying. But when you are present with the change or what is now, there is something different that's available. You can see different possibilities. You can have a communion that may not be available as long as we're resisting that change.
Yeah. And it seems um like there's more what is the word? I can't quite get to it, but like we're making physical more important than this energetic awareness, connection, all of that. And I don't know, maybe it's because I travel a lot and I have people in different places that I have learned to stay connected to, that I can, like, I've built that muscle and, continue to build that muscle of awareness, of perceiving other people, of tapping in, contributing where it needs to be contributed, and receiving, hopefully, building that one too, um, so that there is no disconnect. And one of the things that my kids would say, like I'd go travel and I'd come home and I'd say, "Did you miss me?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And they would say, "Well, we feel you all the time."
Hmm.
So, and it's like,
Oh,
"Oh, wow. Okay, that's a very cool acknowledgement."
that's
So,
beautiful.
what
Wow.
importance are we giving to the physical? Yes, it's really nice to have a hug and, to have that physical connection. But if you have that physical and you don't have the energetic with it, it's empty.
Hmm.
And so you can have the energetic without the physical, but that's not empty. So there's something different about having your energetic awareness and capacities turn back up.
Absolutely. I love that. Wow. What a gift. Like that acknowledgement of your being.
Yeah.
What a gift. And that's also like so much of what is acknowledged. And I see it in this lifetime. I'm not a mother, but I see it all the time how being a mother is such a judgeable offense. Like everybody has a point of view on what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong, rather, and what you could be doing different and all that. That, you know, that people judge on the basis of those physicalities and not like, I love that acknowledgement that you and your children had about the presence of being, that you're always there. We can always feel you. Like that's not about what you're doing. It's about what you be, and just almost the acknowledgement of us as an infinite being, that we're there. We're never disconnected. We're like, you know, that's such a, and I loved when you were talking about like how the physical and the space, like you cannot really have one with like you, if it's empty, if you're not there, like if your being is not there, it's like kind of empty.
It's like seeing, if you've ever seen a lifeless body, it's like, huh. And so this weekend I was in a 3-day body class with Dr. Glenna Rice, and just really, it was just so spacious. And I don't know, I guess over the last few years, I've just been really, really getting into the joy of the space with my body and everything that it does, and like perceiving the stretches and all of that, and just like really enjoying everything with the body. And you consider like we're an entity too, and we're occupying this body. And are we enjoying it? Are we having the joy of embodiment? Or are we just puppeteering this thing that eventually we will move on from, and the body will get recycled? But where does our being go?
Wow, I love that. That is so amazing. Like there, as we're talking about this and perceiving like two different kind of spaces people listening from, one could use this and look at this and go into like, oh my God, where does my mind, like into the freak out of it, or which
Don't
is,
freak
what?
Don't freak out.
Or do, like, it's just a choice. That's not, it's not wrong. But just also look at that there's another possibility. Like you could look at the same thing and be like, wow, oh my God, what is truly possible here that I haven't considered? So like, I remember like what comes up with this is like, I remember this, there's a small snippet that someone extracted from a talk or interview from Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he talks about, it's a beautiful, I know I cannot say it the way the beauty with which he says it, but I'll try to like summarize it or whatever. Like he talks about how when every atom, like the atoms and the molecules that the stars are made up of are the same atoms and molecules that I am made up of. And he talks about like, he beautifully within a very physics language, which is the funniest and cutest and most amazing part of it. He basically does an expansion exercise where he gets you to look at, get bigger and have that perspective of being in this space and looking at the earth and looking at your body from that place. And he says that at the end, he says how one might look at that and have the point of view that I'm so insignificant in the entirety of this universe. But he's like, when I look at it, I look at, wow, that's what I get to be. So, it's like your point of view creates your reality, and how you look at something can determine basically your next choice from that space, right?
Yeah. And, really going back to the simplest tools of access, what's true for you is light and expansive, and what is a lie is heavy and contractive. So, if you feel heavy and contractive, what little lie is woven in with the truth that you're making this contraction out of? maybe change is not bad. Maybe it's exciting. Maybe you thought it was bad because, you can't control it or whatever. But yeah, outside of the bounds of the control is the world of magic and possibilities. So, you can have a controlled life that doesn't change much and it's predictable, and you can try to get that right. I did that for many, many years. That's what we're taught here on planet Earth. But then when you let go of that and you allow your dimmer switch of your light to shine, it's like this whole different kaleidoscope of possibilities.
Absolutely. And there is a level of intensity to that if we allow ourselves to really move with it and be that intense vibration of space that we truly be, then the kind of ease that is available is beyond this reality, because you're not supposed to have it be that kind of
Right.
ease and flow and joy and glory. Life is supposed to be like, look around, like most of the people live as though life is supposed to be hard, and those challenges are real. And in no way am I meaning to dismiss anyone's experience of anything, but like with the Dane's example, like what he shared with that lady, that doesn't have to be hard.
Right.
Change. What if change could be ease and joy and glory? And it starts with ease, like really beginning to recognize that ease is not like this airy fairy thing. And maybe it is in a way that it is very spacious. So like you can call it airy fairy if you'd like that. It is definitely a lot of space. But just even looking at, there is space between planets. Does that make the space non-existent or not real or irrelevant? Or is that
wrong.
space or wrong? Exactly.
Yeah.
Or is that space the most important and relevant thing that keeps everything else where it is? And the magic of the universe in place, and the possibilities and the beauty in existence in whatever ways and forms, like what is actually real and true for you? And like Julie said, the easiest way to know that is that it's always going to be light. If there's something that's heavy, there's something there that's not true for you.
Yeah. And like letting go of using thoughts and feelings and emotions to try to figure out what's right, and moving into this space of awareness of what is light. It's like this instant knowing. But we have to let go of the figuring out to get to that. And that's an interesting change to make.
It is. It is interesting and uncomfortable. Heads up, it is uncomfortable when it's literally like letting go of an old identity that you have so truly believed is you.
Yeah.
And really opening yourself from that space of vulnerability to, all right, if that's not me, what is? Like, what is that? What is actually true for me? If none of this heaviness that I've been swimming in, none of this is actually real, like just for, few 10 seconds, if you just go by these two crazy ladies saying what they're saying and actually look at, okay, cool, if it is actually the lightness is what's true for me, then what is my reality? Like anywhere your life is not light, you could literally use that awareness as an acknowledgement and start using that awareness and acknowledgement as a way to start asking different questions that would allow different awareness to show up. That, okay, cool, I get it. My financial reality sucks. It's heavy as fuck. But okay, what's heavy is not real for me. So if I just go by that, what is real for me? What is going to be that light space around money or financial reality that is true for me? It's a totally different exploration, totally different conversations. You start from that place. Change.
Yep. Yep. And you don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but you know that it's going to create more space, more ease, more possibilities because it's light. Yeah. Yeah. I just had this this opportunity show up that's for my jewelry business, and it doesn't make any sense logically. It's a very short event, and it's a pretty large investment for a really short event. but I was like, I don't know, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so for me, when I choose something, sometimes I indulge, like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then if it feels heavy, then I change. And sometimes I indulge the opposite, like I'm not going to do it. And if it keeps talking to me, so finally, okay, fine. So I chose this thing. And part of what occurred is it gave me access to being on somebody's podcast who has a really large group across the country, but centered in the Bay Area where I live. And I did this podcast, and we just like totally were talking the same language. We're connecting. She'd never heard of Access. And I blend my jewelry with the Access, like it's all the same thing, really energetic. And I just know like that all these possibilities are opening up, and I haven't even been to the event yet. It's later in the week.
How cool is that?
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea that was part of the deal. And actually, I don't even like, I think only a few people were able to do the podcast. And as soon as I got the email, I was like, oh, I'll do it. And I'll do it this week, So it's like choosing and choosing and choosing, and you don't know what's going to show up, but there's these happy surprises where the universe surprises you with like, magic, explosive possibilities. I can't wait to see what else is going to occur from this thing.
It's so beautiful. I love that. And such a great example of what we were talking about, like not functioning from thoughts. Like had you gone into the logic of it, you might have, you might have dimmed the light, but you didn't do that. Like
Turn it off. Turn the switch off. Nope. I can't see any possibilities when the lights are off.
There you go. Such a great analogy. So true. You can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like the magic of perceiving those whispers.
Oh my gosh. Can you believe it's already been 30 minutes?
Oh, really?
That just felt like 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I know.
That was so weird. So sorry, I have to go because I do my expanding exercise at the top of the hour.
It was a magical conversation. So thank you.
To see you. Yeah. And send me your website so I can put it in the show notes. So if anybody wants to connect with Ava, and come and play with us, you guys. We're way more fun in person.
I love that.
Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye, guys.